welcome back to another episode of Unscripted and Unchoreographed. Today we're here with Emma Browne, and she's going to be telling us all about her journey in dance and how she got started. But hi Emma, it's great to have you on today. I'm going to get started like we start every single episode. How did you get started in the arts?
I think I was about a week from turning 13, and my cousin, he always wanted to get into musical theatre and he had zero dance experience. So he was like, "Oh, Emma, would you please come along with me? I'm going to do a ballet class." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." Very first day, I just completely fell in love with it. I knew it was what I wanted to do. So we stayed there for a while. I was so keen to get as much in as I could. So I went to lots of different places, like even just open classes for different schools or youth groups like Ballet Office. There was so many things that we tried just because we could and we wanted to. So I stayed in that school for about 2 years, and then I went to a pre-professional school in Dublin. It was a completely different atmosphere altogether. It was a lot more strict, but also the style was completely different. It was my first time seeing the Russian style of ballet. We had always done RAD, it's the main one there is in Ireland. And I loved it. Through them, we had the opportunity to go to Russia. 4 of us hopped on a plane, over we went. And that was probably the best time of my life. We had the best time, and the teachers were incredible. I think I was probably the fittest that I've ever been in my life. But then COVID hit. Fun fact I found out yesterday, we came home a day before they closed their borders. So we got really, really lucky. We could have been stuck over there because of COVID. So yeah, that was crazy. I think the course was supposed to be about 2 years. And obviously because of our visas, we had to go over 2 months, come home for a week, go back for another 2 months. And we couldn't stay for the full, it was something like that. But no, we had to cut it short because COVID hit. So we very luckily got a flight home. And then everything continued. So we had classes over Zoom with our teachers in Russia. So we were in our sitting rooms trying to take class. And some of it was very, very funny because we'd lose internet and then have no idea what we're supposed to be doing. And he's trying to show us an exercise. And it was very, very tough. And then when things started opening back up again, I didn't really want to go back to Russia just because I was like, you never know what could happen again. And the other girls that I was with were moving on to different things, so I would have been going alone. So I auditioned around for a few different places to try somewhere new. And I was accepted into, the teachers were very, very good at teaching, but the whole environment in the place was so toxic. It was awful. So I came home early. When I came home, I was just mentally drained. I decided I wanted absolutely nothing to do with ballet. I was gonna find a job in like Dunn's or something like that. I stayed at home for a good few months, and then my very first ballet teacher reached out to me and was like, "Would you come help me with the little one?" And so I did. Now it's my full-time job. I just fell in love with it again, slowly but surely. Now we're here.
That's amazing. You started basically when you were 13, which for a lot of people that would be considered maybe a little bit late.
Yes.
How long were you dancing before you went to Russia? Because that sounds like a very short amount of time.
It was. I went to Russia when I was 15 because I turned 16 over there. I'll always remember that.
So
it didn't take
years, you were
very
2
long.
years dancing. That's incredible. Now, we did meet in Ballet Office. You weren't long dancing when I met you.
No, I think that was within the first year.
You have insane turnout and flexibility, which obviously is very helpful when it comes to ballet. But I think you're just one of those people, you naturally have this gift. You're just very talented.
When I was a kid, I never did a gymnastics class, but I used to like teach myself. So I was always moving. I was always doing something. So I feel like that kind of played into it as well.
And if your cousin hadn't been interested in taking these dance classes, do you think you would have gotten into it?
Probably not. When I was at that age, I was a very, very nervous person. I've definitely come out of my shell a lot. The fact that he asked me to go with him, I wasn't going to be by myself, and obviously I know him, he's my cousin. I'm just comfortable with him. But I think if he hadn't have asked me, it probably never would have happened. I would have been too nervous about going by myself.
What was it like going to Russia at 15?
It was very different, but we were so excited to go over. The teacher we had in Dublin, she was very strict, but she was a brilliant teacher. So we had kind of a base for what they'd be like over there. So when we went over, I think because there was four of us, I think it was only one parent came with us just to kind of let us settle in, and then they went home, and it was just the four of us living together in this apartment, and we loved the idea of that. But even the training, we had a few different teachers, and they were so lovely, and they knew that we were away from home and we were fairly young living by ourselves, so they were really nice to us, but they made sure to push us at the same time. Looking back, I loved every aspect of it. Towards the end of the trip, just before we came home, we started to get a bit competitive, which it always happens no matter where you go. You can't really control it sometimes. But yeah, we got very, very competitive about not just like technique, but also body wise, because, we were fairly young, and
Yeah.
we were all quite thin. We were doing a lot, but it became a big focus. Now, it was never mentioned by our teachers. We were never told, you need to watch what you look like. We kind of gave that to ourselves. And it is a big thing in the whole, I don't want to just say ballet community. It would be dance everywhere. So it was very a self-inflicted kind of thing when we were in Russia. Brussels was a completely different story. From the get-go, they were very focused on how we looked rather than what we could do. Oh, it was awful. um, there was one specific teacher in Brussels who really did not like me because I refused to listen to what she would say. I think she was from Russia as well, so she was very old-fashioned in her thinking when it comes to ballet. So, like, we were weighed when we were over there.
Oh,
There was
wow,
there
really?
was no need for that, but we were doing so many hours. We were doing 6 days a week from about 9 in the morning till 9 in the evening, 6 days. But like it was full on. And we had rehearsals. We did a tour of Swan Lake. And I remember very, very clearly one of the last few rehearsals before we went off, the director of the school came in to the room and made an announcement that we have to watch what we eat. We can't have bread, we can't have pasta, we can't have rice, we can't have this and that. Everyone's kind of just standing there like, but they can't say anything because we're young. But there was people younger than me there. I was 17 and I turned 18 over there, but there was people there that were well younger than me. The teachers are putting this into everyone's minds, and you get really into the mindset of it, and it breaks you down slowly but surely.
And especially because you're in very tight fitting clothing, you're in leotard and tights in front of mirrors all day. You can't not but see yourself and what you look like and then to what you look like compared to everyone else. That's really hard. And to be so young where you're in an environment where you trust the adults, or you're meant to trust the adults because they should be there for your well-being.
That one specific teacher that I mentioned a few minutes ago, she used me as an example of what not to look like. She
Oh,
got everyone to stop. We were doing adage, so my leg was out to the side, and she came over and she held my leg and she grabs the back of my leg and she gives it a jiggle and she says, "This is disgusting. You have to get rid of this. No one should have this." And it kind of to everyone like, what, like no one should have this.
oh my
So yeah,
God.
and then from that day, I was like, I am not doing anything in your class. I refuse.
Oh my God, that is so bad. That's insane.
And it's disgusting that it's still a thing.
I've no doubt it happens to the boys as well, but I think there's already so much pressure on women and girls to look a certain way. You're still young and you're still developing. Your body is not fully formed. And to say, oh my God, your legs can't jiggle. You need to have fat on your body. You need to have muscle on your body. You can't just be a skeleton, because then you run the other risk of them turning around and saying you're unhealthy. or you look unhealthy, or you are physically unhealthy and you are not able to do what you need to do, it's such a dangerous path to go down. I am shocked that this happened to you, but the fact that this wouldn't have happened that long ago, it's insane. It's just wrong.
It is wrong, but even for the director to list all the foods that we can't eat, a lot of the stuff that he said was stuff that you need when you're doing that many hours in a week. When you're doing so much, you need plenty of food for energy to get yourself through the day. I tried my best to not listen, but also pretend that I was playing along. Because I had struggled with an eating disorder before I went to Brussels. So I already know that these things are going to trigger either me or lots of other people who are vulnerable to things like that. So I tried my best to block it out, and then eventually it got to a point where I was like, this is just too much on my brain. So I had to get out of there.
Were you living in like accommodation in the school or an apartment by yourselves?
So in Russia or in Brussels?
In Brussels.
So by the time I had accepted, a lot of the student accommodation was gone. So it was little apartments, sort of. You have just a room and then you share a kitchen and a bathroom and all that with everyone else. So each floor has their own bathroom and shower and you share that. And then everyone shares the kitchen. So there was a few different floors. I was on the ground floor. And when I say this room was not even the size of a shed, it was very, very small. I didn't know anyone else that was living in the building. They all were going to college or doing something else. None of them went to the school that I was going to. And a lot of them didn't speak English. I was in a French speaking area. It was very difficult, and after a long day coming home to my tiny little room by myself, it really got to me. I think I really missed home a lot of the time, but I think being in such a small spot by myself didn't help with that either.
So you were responsible for cooking, feeding yourself at 17 years old.
Yeah.
That's really intense. So then when you were in Russia and you were living in an apartment with 3 other girls, was that a similar situation?
I love telling you stories. When we were in Russia, yes, we did cook stuff for ourselves while we were there. Odd time we might go off to McDonald's or something because we're not bothered. But there was a little shop beside where we were staying, and it was a decent enough size. But a lot of the food, all of the fruit and the veg, when you walk in, would be moldy and rotting. So we lived off a lot of chicken nuggets. We ate good stuff too, but we yeah, we tended to go for the frozen foods quite a lot.
Well, if the fresh food is sitting there rotting, I would probably go for frozen foods as well. But that's insane. Like, I'm trying to imagine myself at 15. There is no way I could go off and live in a foreign country where they didn't speak English and look after myself. I don't.
Yeah, there was a lot of trust put into us.
And were a lot of your classes done in Russian or English when you were in Russia?
I think it kind of depended on the teacher we had at the time for each class. We did do Russian lessons while we were there as well, so we were trying to learn the language. Most of the teachers spoke English, and then sometimes they would get us to say things in Russian to them to help us practice, or even counting out like the steps with the music. We had to count out loud in Russian. But I think it was more of a just trying to help us to learn language.
Can you speak much Russian, or is it it's more just like bits of words here and
Yeah, I
there?
know bits and pieces. If I have my notes in here somewhere, I'm sure if I found them, it would all come back to me. But I know just a few little things.
So you started at 13. By 15, you went to Russia. Then COVID happened and you were doing lessons at home. You then went off to Brussels. You came back. You said, I'm not going to dance. I'm going to work in Duns. Were you happy to say, I'm just really tired. I'm ready to give up dance? Or did you ever kind of feel before your teacher came back to you, did you have a feeling of, I want to come back to dance?
Yeah, so I was very, very heartbroken at the thought of never doing it ever again. And I think when I came home from Brussels, I was in a funk. I was completely miserable for months. And it was because I knew what I wanted to do, but I was drained and I was scared. Like in my head, it was more if I push myself to get back into this because I used to love it so much. If I push myself enough, what if those thoughts come back into my head? If it's about my body, or I'm not going to be as fit as when I was in full-time training. So I won't be able to do the things that I used to be able to do. And the thought of that was scary because specifically the school in Dublin that I went to, it was very much if you were weak, you weren't talked to. So you had to be quite strong and know what you're doing to get a good bit of attention. So that was kind of still in my mind of if I try to do something with myself again, what if I'm just stuck in the same spot that I was before I came home? It was really, really tough because I knew I wanted to do it, but I don't even know how to explain it. It just completely ruined me for a long time. Even now, still, like it's been a few years, if I think to myself, oh my God, I'd really love to do a class, this person is teaching here. I'd love to take the class. There's always that voice that comes back into my head of, but you're not going to be where you were. And then it leads into, so why bother? And we're slowly working our way out of that. But I think that's why I love teaching so much, because I had so many bad experiences as well as good, but there was a lot of bad. So I can make it a good experience for other dancers. They can see the good side of it, because there is a good side of it. It's never mentioned food or weight or expectations at all. Anything too strict, it's never mentioned because they're children. They don't need to worry about that. And I think it was definitely pushed, especially in full-time schools, it's pushed on people too young.
Yeah. Kids are kids and they need the space to be kids and not have to worry. Comparing at such a young age is just such a dangerous route to go down because really you don't know what your body looks like until. Anyway, I'm going to leave there. But now you are teaching and you have your own school. How did that come about? Because you were teaching in your old ballet school. Was there a certain moment in time when you were like, oh, I'd like to set up my own classes?
Yeah, so I had started out with preschoolers and senior infants. At first, it kind of took me a while to warm up to the idea of it because in my head I was like, I want nothing to do with dance at all. But I was like, I need to get out of my room, so I'll do it. And then the more I was doing it and the more time I spent with that teacher, because she's such a lovely person, I slowly started to get warmer at the thought of, okay, this might actually be fun. And then the idea popped into my head of what I'd actually love to teach, like a senior class, like a teen class even. I looked into a few different places, like renting a room and trying to make posters and spread the word. So we weren't fully a school yet, but I wanted to experiment with the different levels that you can teach. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Because you see so many interesting characters as well. It slowly progressed then to, okay, what if I start doing my own preschool classes? I was teaching for my old school. I had started some of my classes while I decided at that point to become a qualified teacher. So I'm in the middle of doing my course and I'm kind of using these classes as like work experience to try help me with my coursework. And I was teaching for two other schools as well. Once I got my qualification, I decided to put the work in and actually make it into something big. So we have, I think, 4 different locations now, and they're all quite busy. Also have hip hop and acro. Now, I don't teach those, but I never would have thought it would expand. So, and we have our very own studio opening up hopefully in October.
And did you ever think when you first started, oh, I'm going to go into hip hop and acro? Or did you just see it being just ballet?
Oh, I just wanted it to be ballet. So we named it Embrace Ballet Coaching. And then after a while, we were like, oh, it'd actually be a really good idea to get different styles in. So we've changed the name because obviously that doesn't suit anymore. So we're Embrace Dance Academy now, but I never would have thought.
You've only really trained in ballet. Would
Well,
you
I dabbled
ever,
with others.
do you enjoy other styles or is ballet like your one true love?
Oh, ballet would definitely be my one true love. I do like contemporary when I get comfortable. So sometimes I'm a bit too, I think, rigid. Ballet would probably be in my heart. That's my go-to.
Do you have any advice for young dancers who are going into training, or things that you wish you had known before starting training?
It's said quite a lot that people are thinking of themselves, they're not looking at you. But a lot of the time when you're in full-time training and say, for example, something's not going very well, or you're kind of getting into your head, or maybe getting very frustrated, I know for me, the first thing I would think is, oh my God, all these people think that I'm rubbish. And it's so true that everyone is so focused on themselves. I think trying to make it the most positive experience for yourself as you can, especially if you get to go to a different country. Like it's such a fun thing to do. Like you get to explore different places. That's a really fun aspect of it as well. Making new friends with people from around the world, that's another thing. Because it's very easy to get into your head, especially in full-time training. There's a lot of pressure put on you. Trying to focus on the positive is easier said than done, but it really does make a difference. And I know from experience, this was me to a T. If you're sitting there and you're thinking to yourself, I'm not good enough to be here, I'm never going to look like those girls, or I'm never going to be able to do what they're doing over there, it just spirals from there. So as soon as there's that thought in your head, you go find someone and you talk to them about how you're feeling, because chances are you're not the only one. But trying to look at it from a positive side, you get this amazing opportunity. Like, not very many people go into dance. Like, they're everywhere around the world, but especially in Ireland, it's not a big thing, especially for ballet, to go into it professionally. It's a positive, it's a really exciting thing, it's something different.
Could you actually give us like an idea of what would a day look like where you're doing full-time training abroad? What does that look like?
I'll go with Russia because I love that. So in Russia, we would have been up maybe about 7, get ready. We could have either taken a taxi to the studio or get the metro. And a lot of the time we chose a taxi because it was very, very cheap for the 4 of us, but also quicker. So we could stay in bed for an extra little bit. So we'd make our way there. Normally we would have ballet first. I think it was either an hour and a half or 2 hours. After we could have had, I think it changed each day, we could have had a Russian lesson. We did Padada classes as well. Those were very, very fun. We did acting classes as well. So one of the teachers, we were kind of performing different scenes from ballet. So one that I remember the most was Giselle. So he was teaching us the getting into the character of Giselle kind of aspect of it. I can't remember if we did character. I don't think we did. It's been a while. We had a few different teachers for our ballet classes as well. It was rotated between a few, so it was always going to be different.
And how long would your day be?
I think we started, say, about 9, and then I'd say, depending on the day and what we had, we could have been done around 5 or 6.
Okay, so
Or
kind of
maybe a
like
bit,
a normal
yeah,
working day, kind
yeah.
of.
It might have been a bit before. It wasn't ever very late. He was very conscious of us getting home, poor girls on our own. I think the latest we probably would have been there was about 5 or 6.
Was it just the 4 of you on your own, or did you ever do classes with like other Russian students?
No, so it was just the 4 of us. We were
Oh,
the only
wow.
ones that were there. The main man in there, he was still dancing professionally himself. Sometimes he'd come over to Ireland to teach classes here. Originally, we weren't supposed to go. So we went to St. Petersburg. We weren't supposed to go there originally. We auditioned for somewhere else, which was an actual proper school. There was lots of people already enrolled. We didn't get in, but we were kind of glad because it doesn't have the best reputation. So this man that was in Russia is good friends with the teacher we had in Dublin. So they had planned this whole curriculum for us.
So there was only the 4 of you.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So that's a great way of getting loads of attention and really being able to refine your technique because you're in such a small class. It explains why you're so good. Do you think there is anything that the government can do more of or better to help artists in Ireland?
Absolutely is more that could be done. Now, I wouldn't specifically know what that could be, but for ballet specifically, because that was what I did, There's nothing here. We do have a few companies, like there's Ballet Ireland in Dublin, there's Cork City Ballet, but it's very hard for students that are learning the art to then just be expected to, okay, what do I do now? How do I get into a company if that's what I want to do? Like, there's no real, I don't even want to say place, or like, there's no system for going from normal training to pre-professional and then into professional. That's why a lot of people go abroad, because there's not a lot here. It's a shame because there's so much that could be here. There's a lot of people here that are so interested and determined to do it, and it's a shame that they have to go away to be able to do it. So I'm not sure specifically what could be done, but there definitely is things there that would help with a bit of effort.
So if people are looking to take part in a dance class, where can they find you and where are your classes based?
So we have classes in Enfield, Strafford, Prosperous, Plain. At the moment we have an adult class in Kilcock, but once we get our studio open, that will be moving to Enfield. But you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at embrace_ballet_coaching.
It's been great having the chat. A wonderful way to start the morning. And
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
a really nice morning this morning. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.